Thank you, Ryan. Wow, what a great second day. So I am honored to be giving the closing remarks for day 2. And in full transparency, to get this gig, I had to promise management that I wouldn't go rogue on the closing remarks. So I'll be good, I'll be brief, and I'll stick to the message. All kidding aside, today can be summed up into 3 main themes. The first theme is a recurring theme of this and past symposiums, and that is risk proportionality, and really understanding how adopting and implementing the risk proportionate approaches provide flexibility in applying the E6 GCP guideline to the conduct of the clinical trial. The second theme is transforming adversity into opportunity, how disruption from the pandemic created opportunities for positive change. And then our third theme today is collaboration equals harmonization and innovation. So let's start with the theme of risk proportionality. Yesterday, we learned that the E6 GCP guideline is currently undergoing its 3rd revision that emphasizes using a risk proportionate approach throughout the clinical trial lifecycle. Today, we heard how the risk proportionate approach carries over to sponsor oversight. Because not all trials are the same, and there is no one-size-fits-all approach to sponsor oversight, sponsors should use a risk proportionate approach to their trials, to oversight of their trials. And that oversight starts with quality by design. You should identify your critical to quality factors specific for your trial. You should conduct and document your risk assessments and implement risk management and oversight strategies that are proportionate to the risk to participants and the importance of the data collected. Another important takeaway from the sponsor oversight section is that while there seems, and I think Jason used the word reticence, by those involved in the conduct of clinical trials to adopt risk proportionate approaches, regulators have supported and continues to support this approach for at least the last decade. Another takeaway is focus on what matters. We heard that the goal isn't perfection. The goal is not to make major screw-ups in the important places. It is about shifting our focus from data perfection to what is important to data reliability and subject safety. We also heard from Adil about the importance of sponsor oversight when using complex trial designs. So for example, those that are adaptive in nature, use diverse operational approaches, and use real-world data sources. In conducting these types of trials, advantages and limitations exist, and it would be important in trials with complex designs that a sponsor's approach to oversight be risk-based. Sponsors should prioritize the critical data and conduct, again, their risk assessments. And these assessments should be updated as the trial evolves and changes. And sponsors should also have robust change control processes in place. Barbara told us about the expanded use of service providers to perform study-related activities and how sponsors must be thoughtful and exercise due diligence when selecting and overseeing these service providers. We heard several case examples illustrating important areas where we've seen study conduct issues. And Barbara also provided us with some excellent tips on what should be considered when using multiple service providers in a trial. For example, sponsors should ensure that the contracts with the service providers are well written and tasks and responsibilities are clearly outlined. While risk proportionality was a recurring theme in session 2, that session's overriding theme was how we transformed adversity into opportunity. Strategies for surviving the pandemic not only facilitated faster adoption of more flexible clinical trial designs, operational approaches, and use of real-world data sources, but it facilitated important changes in how regulatory agencies operated. Regulatory agencies had to think out of the box and develop innovative and alternative approaches to conducting inspections and regulatory audits to assess clinical trial conduct and regulatory compliance. Jason described how trials were adapted to include many decentralized elements during the pandemic and how the pandemic forced us to adopt widespread risk proportionality rather than just considering it as a good to have. Jennifer described the positive change that happened in Health Canada as a result of trying to survive the pandemic, and how our colleagues in Health Canada started conducting compliance readiness inspections. We heard about their methodologies and their processes and procedures for conducting these inspections, along with case examples and some lessons learned from these case examples. And Richard explained how FDA also had to adapt and develop alternative ways of assessing study conduct and regulatory compliance during the pandemic by conducting remote regulatory audits. In session 3, Jen, Jenna, and Rachel took a deeper dive in helping us understand the pros and cons of conducting remote inspections and regulatory audits. We received some good insider information on what's involved in the planning of these inspections, how these the resources that are needed, how remote inspections are conducted, and some inspection findings that were observed during these remote inspections. All of our regulators detailed the limitations or hurdles to conducting inspections remotely, with Jenna telling us that a big hurdle for FDA inspectors are local data privacy requirements when inspecting international clinical investigators. Overall, though, the way we had to conduct inspections during the pandemic was a positive outcome for change. It was how we transformed adversity into opportunity. It's clear that remote inspections are a valuable tool, and we will probably be seeing more of these in the future, provided we can work through the hurdles. The third theme today of collaboration equals harmonization and innovation sums up the last 2 sessions. When we collaborate, we open ourselves up to new ideas and approaches that we may have ignored on our own. We challenge each other's assumptions and biases, and we build on each other's strengths. Collaboration is essential to innovation. No one can whistle a symphony. It takes an orchestra to play it. MHRA, FDA, and Health Canada are working towards modernizing our thinking and our respective countries' regulations governing clinical trials. Steve, Emily, and Hossein each highlighted the many efforts that are being undertaken to advance innovation in clinical trial design and conduct. And these efforts have already led to more efficiently designed and conducted clinical trials, and they will hopefully continue to go in that direction. Finally, Lakeisha, Reza, and Mandy talked about how we collaborate with each other to share inspection resources and information, to learn from each other, to observe each other on inspection, and to conduct joint inspections. And the collaboration really helps us to harmonize how we do things together. And then we heard of the promise of more things to come with this collaboration in the future. So in closing, let me leave you with one thing in particular that resonated with me, and that is actual obstacles to innovation are more often rooted in tradition than the perceived barriers of burdensome regulations. So one of my FDA colleagues told me once that most of her life mantras are from Disney movies. So in honor of her, and to keep the theme going for all the Disney quotes today, I'm going to leave you with another Disney quote. So just because it's what's been done doesn't mean it's what should be done. So bonus points if you know what movie that's from, and if you know what FDA colleague uses Disney as all of her life mantras. So basically, if you've always done it that way, then it's probably wrong. So let's just keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things. So thank you for your presence, your participation, and your persistence in all of our shared goals.